So obviously my duty is first and foremost to the clients that I'm working for, and how involved their kids are is really up to them. I do a lot of post-death administration as well, and so I end up talking to the kids and kind of trying to guide them at that point. But it's always a good idea to be as transparent as you can be, because that helps manage expectations. A lot of litigation that occurs after parents pass away comes as a result of people having unrealistic expectations of what they were going to inherit and when. So, to the extent that the parents or sometimes me can help manage those expectations before the parents pass away, it goes a long way toward helping fend off lawsuits afterwards. But yeah, I mean, there's different from family to family. Typically, I'm not talking with the kids until it's time for them to inherit. And then I'm usually working for whoever the successor trustee is. And I'm usually the single point of contact between the trustee and the beneficiaries. I'm making all the notices that are required, sending out copies of the trust, letting them know what the process looks like, what to expect. And that's typically when I will have an opportunity to explain to the kids how their trust share works, when, if any time they get control, how they can request distributions, and for those sorts of things. It's kind of rare, though, that you get a strong negative reaction at that point. Most of my clients do end up giving their kids control over their own trust shares at some point. And when that point is really depends on the kid, and the family. It's common to pick 25, 30, or 35 is the age that kids are old enough to start managing their own trust shares. Depending on the family, sometimes you've got one kid that has just struggled with addiction his whole life, and so he's usually not surprised when he learns that no, he's never going to get direct control of his money, but he at that point still has a creditor protected nest egg he can always fall back on. And, there's a lot of things we can do to benefit him within the trust. Like we can finally get him a condo, like a place that he can live and have a solid base of operations. And it'll be owned by the trustee. It'll be owned in his trust share. So, he can't lien the place. He can't just sell it in a fit of pique. It's a relatively rare situation that I have a beneficiary that's throwing a fit because they expected to get more, or they expected to have full control right away.
And
So-
it should be noted that you do estate litigation as well, or you're one of the few attorneys around in the Arizona area, in the Valley, that can handle that. So you've seen some ugly situations.
I have. It's interesting. Law school kind of sorts us pretty aggressively between a transactional and a litigation track early on. So there's not a lot of guys that do high level estate plan drafting and also end up, defending them in court or attacking them in court. And getting to see the full spectrum, I think, makes me better on both ends, because I've seen how these things fail in court before, which, helps me at, building stronger castles, I guess. It helps, building walls and figuring out how to break them down. Most attorneys only do one or the other.
What would you say is kind of the key to doing this right? Kind of stepping outside of your particular role, but obviously based on your experience, the families that, go through this process from beginning to end, and I guess there really isn't an end if it's done right. But, from your initial work with clients who are passing on their wealth to their kids, and then maybe even you've had some kids that become your clients and they are getting ready to pass it on. What would you say is kind of like the prime factor for making sure that this process goes smoothly and that it's done, in your view, according to how it should be done? Is there anything that you can say that you can point to and be like, this is what how you should be like this? These are the things that these families do to make sure that it's done right?
Yeah, I'd say I've got a few pointers there I can give you. So obviously, the vast majority of people have no estate plan at all. So if you've done any type of planning on any level, you are already in kind of the upper crust of responsibility of people that are trying to do right by their families. And then, the most successful cases, the smoothest cases that I'm involved with, are ones where, I'm kind of involved through multiple generations. One thing that has always struck me is that when it comes to legal services specifically, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A lot of attorneys have kind of like an arm's length relationship with their clients, where the expectation is that, they're not hearing from the client until something's on fire. It's very expensive and very painful to fix it, generates a lot of legal fees for the attorney, and they'll put out the fire, but then, the client kind of goes away and nobody's really happy or at least the client's not super happy with the way that resolved. I much prefer to be more involved with my clients on kind of a day-to-day basis because I can help them avoid problems prospectively as long as they're kind of keeping me in the loop on what they're dealing with. So the clients that I hear from more regularly and that, use a larger part of my skill set. So, the business law, operating agreements, asset protection structuring, contract review, and also the estate planning, the business succession planning, all those sorts of things. It just allows me to help keep them clean and to, help them grow their wealth and transition it seamlessly from one generation to the next. And that's very rewarding for me. You feel like you made a real difference in that family when I was able to, have more touch points and help them avoid pitfalls rather than just kind of like a one-off. All right, you came in and had me do your trust, but I didn't hear from you again for 25 years. You didn't make any updates to it. And now that we're trying to do the post-death administration, we're figuring out that, obtain more assets and you didn't title them properly. So now we're going to have to go through that court process we were hoping to avoid. And, things changed with the kids. Maybe there was a reconciliation with one of them, or one of them ended up helping a lot more than the others, but the trust doesn't reflect the fact that things changed over the years. And it leads to problems. It's like anything. If you do the bare minimum and you don't, update it from time to time, the outcomes aren't going to be ideal.
All right, Michael may have another question. I have one question to close us out before we get to the show announcements. But, and again, setting aside that Michael may have one as well, but have you ever seen a family successfully, I know it's happened, but if you have had a firsthand seat to a family that pooled its wealth successfully over multiple generations while they were alive and sort of administered that classic family office model? I realize it's something we may not be seeing as much in Arizona. We might not have seen as much in Arizona in the past, but certainly as we have a lot of high net worth individuals migrate and it becomes more of a seat of business, we might have to deal with it more in the future. But have you witnessed that?
Yes, and it happens. There's some common best practices you can use with planning to basically protect the wealth from creditors, from divorcing spouses over multiple generations. And that tends to go a long way. You put that stuff in place, and if you have the multiple generations that are consulting the same competent attorney over what to do and what not to do, that has a big impact on helping concentrate and grow wealth. Frequently, those families will also have like a donor advised fund or a family foundation or something that the kids can come around together after the parents pass away and continue to, it helps bind the family together. You see that as well with like shared vacation properties and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's more and more common in Arizona as, we get a lot of left coast refugees that are fleeing here and bringing their wealth with them. And those are exciting cases to work on. I enjoy that.